Most of what gets called AI transformation is just activity, right? Tools bought, pilots run, training delivered. That isn't a failing of people teams. It's what the whole market has been sold. So that's where we are at the moment. And the tell is simple because 6 months after a rollout, the work still runs the same way. And nobody can really point to a single decision or workflow that has changed.
Markus, thank you for spending this hour with us on this absolutely critical conversation that we need to have. It is, yeah, just so important that we get our heads out of the sand and talk about this stuff openly. So, yeah, again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
For all of you listening in, this is Markus Bernhardt. He is the principal of Endeavour Intelligence. And yeah, he's been working alongside me for about a year now, I would say. And yeah, just been an absolute crucial part of my business and how I'm growing and how I'm showing up for learning and development. So yeah, again, thank you. Looking forward to this conversation.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. And I'm glad to be here and glad to have this chat. And hopefully people find it useful and get something that they can take away and think about and apply.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's start with the big one. You are in these rooms where these conversations are happening. You know, you support huge companies. You were actually chatting with me yesterday about a project you're working on. So yeah, you're not in conference rooms, you're not in theories or anything like that. You're in the actual rooms. So what is the honest state of things right now?
The simple answer is it's very busy. And I say that not only from when we look at the learning and talent development rooms, I work with organizations on the transformation across all functions. And of course, the people part there is quite important. So for all of them, regardless of which function it is, most of what gets called AI transformation is just activity, right? Tools bought, pilots run, training delivered. That isn't a failing of people teams. It's what the whole market has been sold. So that's where we are at the moment. And the tell is simple because 6 months after a rollout, the work still runs the same way. And nobody can really point to a single decision or workflow that has changed. A lot of it is visible activity on the surface, people prompting on their own device, utilizing AI to get a slightly different outcome at a slightly different speed, and then going back to exactly the old workflow, which is the Slacks and the Teams and the emails and the CRMs and whatever it is. But how workflow, responsibility, accountability, and capability works has not changed. And the research in my Endeavour report, for example, the pattern there is very consistent. The spend goes up, the activity goes up, and how the work actually runs barely moves. And that's kind of also good news. I mean, there's a real opportunity here. We're not here to do learning and talent development bashing, because the changing the work is the part that our teams are built for. Capability is what our teams are built for. And so there's a real opportunity here. The training is the foundation. Of course, all that surface activity is necessary, but we need to start getting more into the nitty gritty and supporting the teams with that.
And there's a lot there to unpack, which we will in this conversation. So, and you've already alluded to it. So, in your opinion, there's not real transformation happening yet. It just seems like busy work and doing the activities, but it's not getting into looking at how work is different from the beginning, that systemic analysis, so to speak. Is that what I'm picking up?
Yeah, it's about the workflows themselves. Who keeps them updated? Who's accountable? What checks sit around these workflows and AI? If we can do something much quicker and maybe also at better quality, we've gained back some time. Which part of that time are we utilizing to maybe even check the system? And that's a critical piece there. That's a trap, and training is the visible piece that gets handed to people teams, and everyone assumes that's the whole job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just the smaller half and the bigger half. Well, half wrongly used there because both halves should be the same size, but the smaller part, the bigger part,
Smaller
redesigning
part,
how the
bigger
work
part,
actually
yes.
runs
Yes.
is every bit as much as yours to lead. And I think handing everyone an assistant in his activity, redesigning how a team actually makes a decision, does the work, checks the work with AI in the loop. That is the transformation, and I think that's the opportunity here for us that we can hopefully grasp and run with.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll get very specific into how this impacts learning and development teams. So we're just needing to set the context so that, and here's why I'm saying this, because I feel a lot of learning and development teams, people feel that they're so far behind. That yes, I use Claude to write my emails and maybe to do my content. And I actually did a whole co-work thing. You'll be very proud of me. I got Claude to co-work and put a whole presentation together for me for a piece of learning I was putting together. So we'll have to talk about that because that was so hard. It took me so much longer than just doing the PowerPoint myself, right? But I do feel like, and I say the saying, it's no longer, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward. It's like 30 steps back, and maybe it's 50 steps forward eventually, but we have to take those 30 steps back. So, and we'll get into that because it's so hard to learn this new skill. So, to wrap up the context piece, when a company says we're doing AI, from your perspective, what does that actually mean and look like day to day? Is it what I just said, doing emails, or is it a little bit more? And I'm sure there's differences.
That's the crucial question, and that's also where a lot of surveys mislead us, right? When we look at surveys, then the surveys say, now this percentage of people is using AI. And we don't even have a definition of what using AI means. For some people, using AI means that, yes, 3 times a week they write a prompt. And it helps them reformulate one long email, that they're not quite happy with what the flow is like. And they think that prompting Copilot once gives them a better email, and they do that 3 times a week. They now feature in your survey as they're using AI on a regular basis.
And that's still very low, right? I mean, the last I saw that it was like 10% of people in the world. I mean, it's very low.
When you look overall, it's like that. If I think recent number in L&D teams are now just above the 50% mark.
Okay.
For organizations, so that shows where in the white collar corporate world we're different in how we utilize our desktops, right? So we also always have to keep in mind that when we look at global numbers, there are a lot of non-white collar workers and frontline workers that obviously have no reason to prompt anything. Yes, that skews the numbers. But then it gets wishy-washy because then we don't know what using AI actually means. And in one company, it is the fact that a team has started to re-engineer a workflow. They utilize AI for some decision making within the workflow, and the AI is not an LLM, because if you have if-then workflows like in the good old Zapiers, then you don't use LLMs. It's a very clear structure of what decision gets made and how and on what data. And they might also then use some AI at the very end to slightly reformulate the email to make it slightly more personalized to whoever the client or customer or partner is. And so, that's a stark contrast at the end, where people are starting to do the undercurrent work and moving away from the surface wave, to those that in the survey say, yeah, we're now also using AI. And we also have to look at the adoption curve. The adoption curve is quite simply what it is. Not everyone can or wants to be an early adapter. And in a lot of organizations, they have been given Copilot. It's often finally been turned on relatively fully. And most people have access to it. There are still a lot of companies that have only given limited access to a very limited number of people.
Yeah.
All of that is true. And again, that brings me back to this is a real opportunity, because we have to move away from the AI literacy piece. I've been speaking for 2.5 years now about AI fluency,
Mm-hmm.
which moves us from the prompt training beyond that into workflows and into questioning how we do things and sharing with the team good habits and ways to do things better.
Yeah.
And that's only within our own team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guess which team should help the other teams with the capability piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Sounds very much like that could/should be our remit in learning and talent development. And that's where the people transformation piece sits. And yes, it's going to be scary because this is very technical, and we're seeing how technical it is and how complicated it can be when we try to restructure our own function and utilize AI. And gosh, it's a much bigger ask to help other functions in the organization, like sales and marketing, to utilize this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
that's the opportunity. If you're scared of that, then I fear for the future of your function. If you're willing to take that on and you're already having conversations in that direction, I'm very confident that you're on the right path.
Okay. We need to talk about that more. I just first want to dig into what separates, or what is the difference. The people listening in, they're thinking, okay, Markus, this all sounds wonderful, but how do I know if I am on the right track? So my question to you is, what separates like genuine transformation, genuine using it, versus just the appearance, just the I use it 3 times to write my emails or whatever that is, or maybe I use it for every email, like that's not the thing. But what separates that? Because from the conversations I've had, really learning and development teams are being asked, myself included, by my clients of, can you help us do AI, and then, but again, it's still that order taker. They're still telling us what to do. And I don't feel like, unless we're really deep into it, that we're really in this game. So, in very simple terms, my question, what separates that genuine use, that genuine transformation of the work we do versus the appearance, the surface level stuff?
The real difference is if you've looked at workflows and different roles and different accountability within your team. If you haven't looked at that, then everyone's just happy prompting and might be more effective, might be more efficient, might have even slightly better quality, who knows? But you haven't restructured anything. If you're in the leading section, then your team is having conversations about how and with which tools are we approaching which problem. And when we have a result and you have done it in the agreed fashion, it doesn't have to be a copy and paste prompt, but there can be some idea of, when we design something like this, these are the tools we use, this is the approach we use, these are the checks and balances we use, and when we have the result, this is how a second person has a look at it. That would be the first hint that you're changing a workflow slightly, and that you're not just producing the goods. And the reason that is so important is because with that comes your AI fluency piece, as I like to call it, because that will show that you have the understanding that this is how a function needs to think differently and rewire themselves. If you don't have that in your own function, how are you going to help sales or marketing roll this out and support them with the capability piece, where you identify the champions, you look what they're doing well, and you promote that for the others, and you support the leader in that function to restructure the workflow. So our task is to be an early adopter within our own function. If we are not that, there is no way we can help another function roll this out.
Yeah.
And then we're on the back foot.
Yes.
And we have competition, because believe you me, in sales and marketing, they're looking at restructuring workflows. They are looking at rolling this out. And if they're leading on this, well, guess which leader gets asked for help by another function when it comes to, how did you guys do this? And then there's a real concern from my end that the capability piece gets pulled away from learning and talent development, because other people have the experience. And
Yeah.
then and then it's back to, we need the compliance course, and we need these certificates, and we need these boxes ticked, and we also would like to have something as a benefit to our employees where they can do some learning on the side, and then we subscribe to the LinkedIn learnings or whatever is out
Yes,
there.
yes. Yeah. And that is really the boring work, right? I don't think anyone on this call is excited to do that kind of work. You know, everyone joining on this call and listening in wants to be that transformational learning and development / talent development leader. So that actually leads into the next question is, a lot of people and L&D teams are being left out of the AI discussions. You know, they're not being brought into any of the decision making. Or, well, I'm assuming, right? From your experience, do you think that that is true? And if it is, what are they missing by not being in the conversations? You know, I often refer to it as, we need to get more upstream. So, you know, what are they missing by getting this downstream information and not being upstream?
They're missing the fact that other people are asked for how to do the capability piece and how to do the workflow transformation piece. That's it in a nutshell. And if you're missing that, then you will no longer be in the conversation, and you will not get yourself back into it. So that for me is the real concern. So if you want to be on the front foot here, you have to be able to ask the right questions when it comes to AI governance, AI use, and workflows. And it's honestly, it seems complicated, but it's not that hard, right?
Okay, let's get into that. Give me a practical example. If someone's sitting here, okay, I really want to move upstream. I really want to be at the forefront of rolling out this AI stuff. Give some practical questions, give some practical things that people can do right now to position themselves like that.
So for me, it's about what I call my 4 pillars, and every framework is slightly different, but at the end of the day, it's a good checklist to have. So if you have a framework, you're doing well. And for me, it's my 4 pillars. I look at 4 things that sound technical, and they're not, and I'll explain how. The first one is decision rights. Who decides what and how? Who has the right to make a decision? That can be a human, that can be a team, and that can be an AI piece. That has to be clarified in the workflow. And when you look at a workflow, it's very easy to do that, right? When we look at an insurance and we look at how to sign off a claim, the first decision has to be made, as in, usually, do we have the right client pulled up? And have we matched the claims form with the right customer? Is that the person that's actually made the claim? Decision 2 might be, is the form filled incorrectly? Decision 3 might be now let's start looking at the facts around the form. Those are things that you need to map out.
Okay.
And
so
a
that
lot
would
of
be
your
your first step. Your recommendation is take any process, so whatever it could be.
And look at the
How we
decisions that
hire,
need to
how
be
we
made.
Okay.
And write them down. And very often that gets you into some really good thinking. So my standard example is work I did with an insurance company where the goal was to automate a small percentage. Well, that was the starting point, at least a small percentage of the small claims under $150.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to automate the smallest, simplest percentage of those, you have to answer some questions, and you have to make those decisions. And decision rights tells you which decision can be made by whom. And then the second piece in the pillar underpins that, which is data contracts. And that, again, sounds very technical, but it basically means, what data can you make the decision on? A human would go into the CRM and quickly check that they've got the right customer pulled up. If you want an engine to do that, they have to have access to the CRM. They have to have access to the claims form. They can only make the decision that they've married the 2 right candidates up if they have access to those 2 pieces of data. And if one of those breaks as a chain, then the data isn't there and the decision can't be made. Simple. right? And so whether a human looks at data, that Excel spreadsheet that officially doesn't exist that the team has been using, all those things, that needs a rethink too. And then because we're working with a system that is somehow automated, and like I said, you start in your mind with something like Zapier or your CRM that sends automated emails when someone signed up for a newsletter, that it sends an email saying, yes, thank you for signing up the newsletter. We'll send you the first version soon. Those automated workflows are a good starting point, because a lot of automated workflows are not LLM workflows. A lot of it is if-then thinking. And if-then thinking, you don't need an LLM to help
just
you.
for people who don't know what LLM is, explain that quick.
The large language models, the Claudes, the GPTs, all of those models that we're calling the AI at the moment. And then, because we're working with models, the third pillar is runtime oversight, which again is a technical term, but it's really simple. You need to have a way of looking at, are we doing the right things here? Are we flagging the right moments as flags? Are we confident that we've made the decision? Are we confident the data is up to date? And we've been spoiled so far. The world has been unbelievably simple because we had a human in the loop, and the human in the loop covered all that, and we knew who to blame.
Okay.
Because the human signed it off and the human used the AI. Now that we're being sold agentic, which means the AI might be able to make a decision by itself and action something on the back of that, we need to really start thinking about runtime oversight. That is the technical version, which is you might have an agent checker that needs to run alongside and flags things that don't look right, because otherwise you can't have a human in the loop. You can't look at that dashboard at 9 a.m. and check what's happened in the system over the weekend. If 1,500 emails have gone out and they're all brand damaging, that's bad. So we don't have that, and that's why I keep coming back to what I call agent washing. The debate about whether something has agency or not. It's not that I'm bold on definitions. It's the fact that a human in the loop and a prompt exercise needs IT governance and needs a trained individual. Agency with a machine, with an AI, requires an architecture of governance that we haven't got yet.
Okay.
And if you think you're running agents, then you have to ask yourself the question: does it actually make a decision? If I've programmed a GPT to go out and search the news for me and highlight to me what it thinks it's useful, that's an automation piece. I asked for that. I'm just getting it back, and then I have time to decide. If you give an agent the allowance to clear your entire diary for the week and send everyone in the diary a notification saying, sorry, Markus has better things to do than meeting with you this week. That would be agentic. And then we need to think about
that's the difference. All right.
Can the agent make that decision? Can the agent make that decision for all people, or maybe not for your boss? That's a decision, right? What data can it make that on? Data contract. And who runs the oversight of that? Well, maybe you need a second piece in place that double checks before things actually go out. And so the decision gets put on hold for, say, 20 minutes. So a second agent can run a sanity check over what happened. And if it thinks that anything is slightly untowards, then it just flags it and pauses it so that a human can then review. That would be runtime oversight. And then the fourth pillar.
I think you're running 10 steps ahead. This feels very overwhelming. And that's I do want to step back into this, because we need to ask the real question, right? That's what we promised everyone when we said we are going to ask the real questions. So what we're all sitting with is this fear. It really feels like not even just learning and development, but people are a little bit, there's unrest, right? There's fear, there's all of this stuff. So should learning and development people be genuinely worried that AI is going to come for their jobs? Or, is that the wrong fear to be having? Because when you talk like this, and it feels like, even for me, I'm like, okay, I use Claude, I dispatch, I do all the things, but it feels so much. And I think that's a lot of the feeling right now.
I think it's a crystal ball fear. And we're wasting time on something that we can't decide right now anyway. The models are way overhyped in capability. The reasons we haven't got many true agents out there is because they're unbelievably hard to build if they are proper agents. And we're facing some real problems where these systems become unstable very, very quickly. They're unbelievably clever if you want to prompt 3 times and get an answer. But if you have large ranges of context, they fall down very quickly. And we're told with every model how much it has improved and how well it does on the benchmarks. And my example is always the Mount Sinai study from March this year, where the best GPT model was trained on basically all of medicine. I'm cutting some corners here in the conversation, but imagine the best GPT model trained on all of medicine, triaging what someone should do when they have a complaint. Sorry, a concern. And the concern is, I can't breathe. And the model triages you very easily to call the ambulance immediately. If you add, my uncle doesn't think it's so bad, a significant amount of cases get triaged to you need to make an appointment within the next 3 days.
Okay.
And no matter how much better the models get, no matter what maths problems they can solve, that is a contextual problem we have. An 8-year-old can decide, let's ignore the uncle, let's call the ambulance. And the best large language models can't. And so it's overhyped quite clearly. The progress has been drastically amazing, but it's overhyped in terms of how it might steal your job, at least for now. And when I look at the insurance company where we, automated just under 10% of the small claims, where people get notified within 5 minutes of putting the claim in that the money is on the way. How beautiful is that in terms of ROI? In that team, and that's my 4th pillar, the roles have changed. The people who used to sign off those claims now have built and are keeping up to date the architecture that signs them off.
Okay.
And they look at the flags and they keep the architecture up to date when something changes, when the policy slightly changes. You cannot say to the AI, oh, the policy has changed, update everything accordingly. Good luck. Good luck. With a 3% error, you're in deep troubles if you're running your insurance company like that. And now that they're all upskilled, they all know how the workflow works. They know from the sandboxing the first time round, where they ran the AI in parallel to the people, where the people were inconsistent, where the AI made mistakes, where the AI was better, where the people were better, which flags should have been flagged that weren't flagged, and which flags came up that shouldn't have come up. After 3 weeks of sandboxing that, you get unbelievably good insights into how you're running your team and how you're making your decisions. You can then build the AI to be really, really reliable, and you've learned a lot in the process. That team can now go and automate the first 5% of a slightly bigger claim or the next 10% of the standard claims. But every time something comes back, you need your team who really know how the work got done to build that. No one from IT can come in and help you with that process other than putting a little bit of the tech stack in the background.
Yeah.
But they have no idea about what they're deciding, and only the people in the room know what decisions need to be made, what data is available or not, who keeps that data up to speed, and what checks and balances or runtime oversight you need. And that's why the 4th pillar is roles, because the roles are changing. And in those teams that I work with, not a single person has been let go. And they are very cutting edge in terms of what they're doing. But their ROI is not that they've been able to let a couple of people go. Their ROI is that they're having a better, faster service. And guess what? We often say the black box. Well, in that insurance company, they are more auditable than they have ever been in an instance for the automated piece, because they can tell you exactly what decision was made on which data and why and how for every single case. With humans, it's never been that auditable. So where people say, oh, it's a black box. Well, yeah, if you plug it straight into GPT and Claude and you say, try to sign off these claims, well, then you've got a black box. But if you've built a proper workflow, you're more auditable than you've ever been before. So easy life. And from that angle,
Easy
I would
life,
say
so easy.
The fear is normal, but I don't see the point right now. Yes, if my career was working in a call center, I would be concerned.
Okay.
But
All right.
but if my career
Yeah,
is,
but not if your career is in building this people capability around all of this. Like, yeah,
yes,
I mean, and you know how strongly I feel that people teams, learning and development specifically, are going to become more and more important. We just have to step into the context, the judgment, the big system thinking. So let's make this real now, Marcus. So what does it actually take to lead through this? You know, and I want you to answer from a perspective that maybe they don't have the title, you know, maybe they don't have all the budget, you know, this insurance example sounds expensive, right? And it sounds like you
yeah.
had C-suite buy-in, you know, or leadership, you know, that they were coming to you for this. So, you know, people on the call thinking, well, my business is nowhere near this. What's it going to take for me to lead through this?
Your starting point is one piece of work and a really good set of questions, which you should already have, because if you're inquiring about one piece of work, you will have all those questions in your head. You just need to write them down and say what needs to be answered here in order to make progress, in order to be able to use a tool. If you're a team of one, take a thing you already do, redo it with AI until you're genuinely good at it, and then ask the real question of it: how the workflow should change. Who's accountable? What checks sit around that piece? And what agency do we give the system, or what agency do we hold back for the human? And then bring one sharp question to your manager, and none of that even needs a permission. You've been using the tools that you're allowed to do. You've thought this through, and you think you can improve the workflow, and you need to ask the question: how does this fit into the wider piece? And that question needs answering for you, for your manager, for everyone, because otherwise we're not going to get to that ROI number. Because if we don't do that, it's happy clappy prompting and everyone is a bit more efficient, but we're never going to be able to measure that. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
If you lead a team, redesign with the team one workflow with the accountability and the right checks built in. And if you lead a function, bring the bigger questions into the leadership conversation. How the workflows get redesigned, who's accountable, what checks sit around the AI. Because the human in the loop cozy period is over. And even that didn't work, because Candice signed this off 3 minutes before lunch. It's a timestamp where we then go to Candice and we say, Candice, you shouldn't have signed that off, should you? Well, but the LLM came back with it and I didn't spot the error. Okay, Candice, fine. There we go. That's the governance we've had for AI so far. I mean, beautiful, right?
Yes.
So that give the AI some agency, and that will definitely not work anymore. And there'll be a lot of things that happen in an AI that has agency when you're away for lunch. And you're all well placed to be the one who raises these questions, and you don't have to do it from a blank page. We built a free tool, me with my team, the Endeavor Diagnostic. It's very technical. It's not find your Disney character in 10 questions. It's 60 questions that will take you 12 to 14 minutes to answer. If you're unsure about a question, just give it your best guess. You're not ruining your questionnaire with it. And you will get a full rundown across the 4 pillars, completely free, how you're doing on each pillar and what you should be looking at. And I've run this questionnaire not just past learning and talent development people. I've run it past people who lead AI transformation in Silicon Valley tech companies, and they've said, wow, there's quite a few things here that we have not yet put on the table and need to think about. And so I'm almost giving you the questions
yes,
that you might want to ask as you want to go more agentic. But be aware, be warned, this is a technical piece and this is about agentic AI. This is not how do we get better with prompting.
No.
That's where you
I've
start.
done that diagnostic. So we'll talk about it. I want to wrap up with the last piece. Is that one piece of gold information that you just gave was just start with one thing, right? You don't need to understand everything about AI before you start, because that's what I did. I mean, you and I speaks, right? So I went and did PowerPoint by my, and I let it design overnight while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
So I just started with that one thing, and yeah, it's so hard. I was actually texting my brother who works in AI a lot, and I was like, I can't do this. Give me the prompts. So he sent me a whole prompt thing, but it is just starting, and I'm going to say feeling so uncomfortable, and that's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. Like, feel uncomfortable, and because that is going to be what it takes.
It's a
All
beautiful
right, so
learning
let's
journey.
get into this diagnostic too. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
I was
interrupted.
going to say it's a beautiful learning journey. If everyone grabs a hot beverage, gets around the table, and for 5 minutes brainstorms on what would be the one really cool thing we could be doing with this that will impact us all as a department and really change our lives, you will get 3 to 4 good ideas, no matter whether they're insane or whether they're realistic. You will get 3 to 4 good ideas. Then you decide who tests them out and how in a safe fashion, and then comes back and reports back. Beautiful. Now you're running that, and you're going to get some feedback of whether it worked or not and how you might be able to improve it. And you will usually have someone sitting at the table who's concerned about 1 or 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. That person gets the homework to look into those concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The person who still says, are we allowed to put this data into our enterprise OpenAI contract or into Copilot? Is the person that should go away and research that and come back to the team and tell the team what the current T&Cs for Copilot on the enterprise contract say. And then you can decide whether A, you're going to trust the T&Cs or whether you're going to mistrust the company. We have to make that decision all the time, right? Someone in IT has our passwords for everything. Our bank is in the cloud. We make these decisions all the time, and we weigh it off with risk. I always laugh and say, my mum was absolutely flabbergasted the first time I signed up to PayPal. She said, that's an internet company. You can't give them your credit card number.
I know. Yeah.
And
I get that.
ta-da, here we are. So the concerns need to be answered, but once the information is on the table, we can decide whether we're okay or not okay with the decision. That is called informed moving forward. And with your use cases, you send 2 or 3 people away to try 2 or 3 things. Well, the next time you come together for 10-minute coffee, everyone has had the homework to maybe spend 45 minutes on this and come back and report back.
Yeah.
And then other people pool in what ideas they might have, and now you're already off to the races. And you've asked one of the first questions, which is, how could this make a big difference, and what would be the biggest difference we could make here, and what are our concerns around that? And guess what? If that's what you're starting next week, you can probably very quickly find 10 teams that think you're way ahead.
Yeah. That's so true.
Right? We are so in the early adapter phase. This is the moment to jump on board and to get yourself on the front foot and start asking some questions, even the uncomfortable ones, because they all build your understanding, and they gave you that capability piece. And guess what? Once you've gone through 1 or 2 loops, the moment someone comes to you and says, oh, we have this tool, we've tried to roll it out, our people aren't using it, we need some L&D help here. And when it's an AI tool, you suddenly have a much better understanding of how you might approach this. You've had the conversations within your own team, so it's not just needs analysis, it goes beyond that. You need a bit of technical understanding, but you can help that other team roll that tool out and utilize using it in a much better fashion. So it all sounds so much more complicated than it is.
Yeah. And you know what? Even if it is complicated, like, we're smart. We'll figure it out. And you said even ask the uncomfortable questions, and I would say, like, definitely ask the uncomfortable questions and feel uncomfortable and just push through, because I feel like that is where we are. It feels like we're all beginners again. Very much on this journey. So tell us a little bit more about that report. So personally, from my as a recipient
tester,
there we go, of that report, I can tell I can tell everyone listening now that it is eye-opening. So even if you go through it, you haven't even, opened up an AI in your life, that it doesn't matter. I would do that report, and it doesn't matter if you run AI, if you're, if your company's adopted it, it really opens up your mind to think about the questions, right? I was thinking about it through the lens of one of my clients, and I was like, oh, they're in real trouble. Like, they're not thinking about this stuff. And so just do it for your own awareness. I would say it kind of unlocks, it unlocks something that things I didn't think about.
And also the feedback has been, and this was obviously my vision to realize a 60 question questionnaire. People come back and say, I've learned so much while doing it. Well, guess what? You're not just answering short, simple questions. You will see the insurance example come back. You, with the automation of the small claims as an example, so that you have something to think about, or you can think about your own use case in your organization while you walk through it. And while we're answering the questions, there's a lot of information shared about why we're asking the question, what we mean by it. And like I said, if you're unsure about something, just give it your best guess. Your final report will not be utterly wrong or perfectly right either way. And guess what? One of the best exercises that several organizations have done is, in the same team, they've let 4 or 5 people answer the questionnaire. And then their eyebrows go up.
Yes, get your team to do it. Get your team and then talk about it. Like, go and actually have a debrief meeting. Like, that would be very
especially
useful.
When results differ drastically. If two people in your team say we're exposed on data contracts, and 2 people in your team say we're absolutely fine on data contracts, ask the difficult question: why on earth are we disagreeing about this? What use case did we have in mind, and why do some people think we're unbelievably exposed, and other people think we're absolutely fine with this AI piece? Again, that you get a lot of information about running the diagnostic with a couple of your team members, and like I said, I give this out for free. So
yes, I'm going to add the link again, but let's wrap up and open it up for questions. I actually had a text question come in,
amazing.
But let me open up the chats. So for all of you listening, jump in, ask Markus the hard questions. He will not hold back. As you can see, like I always say, he doesn't do hype, and neither do I, and that's probably why we get on so well. All right, so here is, let me find that question, Markus, while if people are thinking and want to jump in.
Absolutely.
Give me a second. And if you want to come off mute, there is a way that I could pull you into the chat. So let me know if you do want to come in.
People are on YouTube, people are on LinkedIn, some people are on Riverside.
Yes, I know that's the hard part. I do this because I'm lazy. The editing is so easy afterwards. Okay. Here. Okay. And I don't know if this person is online. Okay, we have a question. Can you see?
I've got one from Philip Pinkerman here in the chat. Philip says, earlier you talked about finding a task that you can automate and become really good at. What are some tasks you recommend L&D to automate? Well, automate is a strong word, because our workflows aren't quite as comparable maybe to the insurance case in most instances. But what can we automate? Well, we can utilize maybe models to come up with better questions for our assessments. Models are very good at coming up with questions, especially when you insist that they use good practice and research, right? One of my favorite examples is most models, and I don't want to get into the copyright piece here, please. Most models are very well aware of Patty Shank's multiple questions research. And
Okay.
so you can say to a model, I want multiple choice questions on this, and I want it fully in line with how Patty Shank would want these questions to be
Okay. Yeah. So bring in an
ideated.
expert. Okay. Yeah.
So that would be one very basic, very simple piece where you
Okay.
can
So you're
start.
saying multiple choice questions if we're testing for competence or something like that. Is
Exactly.
that? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because we've always struggled. That's why many e-learnings have 10 to 12 questions at the end. And if it's a clever one, then we utilize 8 of them and they rotate.
Yeah.
Right? We can now do far more. We can have slightly adaptive assessments, where we go deeper when someone has shown that they know what they're talking about, and there's so much more we can do. But if you're asking me for something really basic, then start there. If you want
Yeah.
something that's slightly more complicated, there's a big discussion out there that the learner needs analysis is of course an important piece of what we're doing, but the amount of data we could have access to, in theory, in every organization about the people that we need to train and the issues they're having, the data is becoming bigger every single day. And so the right question is to ask, what data is there and where is it and who's got access to it and why? And should the performance support function called L&D, should they have access to that data? If you don't have access to that data, then you're gonna have to do your good old fashioned start from absolute zero learner needs analysis. If you have access to the data, you're on the front foot. And there are even people in a recent Red Thread research webinar who said you almost don't need to do it. If you're in an organization where you've got white collar workers on desktops and you've got good data sharing, you have an unbelievably good analysis. To which then, of course, some people raise their eyebrow and go, "That's a bit big brother," but here we go. So,
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know how forward thinking your team is, but I've gave you an unbelievably basic example, and I've given you one that's maybe 2/3 up
Yeah.
in terms of how technical do we need to be and who do we need to ask, and we need to go outside of our function to start having this conversation. But guess what? That's another fantastic starting point. To find the right people to talk about the data that about performers is out there and whether and how L&D has access to it is critical. Because my fear isn't that you will be replaced. My fear is that the head of sales will buy their own sales training, utilize their own learner data. The vendor will tell them it all plugs in automatically. It's all super cool. And then head of sales runs away with the sales training, with data that you didn't sign off, that you don't even know exists, with a program that you don't even know exists. And suddenly there won't be any incoming from sales. Because they're working with a vendor directly and they haven't vetted that vendor correctly. They might not be adhering to good learning principles, all of those good things. So don't let this be automated away from underneath you when vendors are telling departments like sales that they can look after their L&D for them. They don't need the L&D department.
Yeah, I think that is the real fear. You really said something very valid there, is being out of the loop. I want to add, because I've actually done this once with a client. So also to give you a use case, Philip, is I went to a new client. I worked there just for 14 weeks, putting together their 3-year capability strategy together. And I did it so fast because of AI. And what I did was every conversation I had, so I interviewed the CEO and I interviewed, they had 12 departments. I interviewed all 12 heads of those departments. I ran focus groups, but I recorded the transcripts on everything. And then I took that text and I put, all of those. This was a year ago, so I didn't even get like Claude Cowork, but I actually just uploaded transcripts, as attachments. And I said, read through these transcripts, come up with themes, what's really going on, what are the pain points, what are the gaps. And then basically they came to me, or, the AI came to me with these like top 5 things. And then I still really needed to work using my own experience. But how I could do it in 14 weeks, provide a 3-year capability strategy that supported the entire company, was doing that. Usually that would take me 6 months, so yeah, that's another use case that I personally used way before I was even good at this or a little bit good. All right, sorry. So Maria asked, as someone restarting career, relocation from Pakistan to the US, what should I look in for a company I apply to? So she wants to be part of a company passionate about AI and L&D. That's a really great question.
Yeah, that is a good question, and that's one of those questions that if we knew the exact answer, that would be brilliant. It's hard to just give you a definite answer on that, but you will go through an interview process or through some kind of application process, and that process will already tell you things about the company. You'll get a vibe. Are you interacting? Are you interacting with automated systems or interacting with humans? And what's the mixture? That already tells you where that company is going. And then you have to decide whether it's done well or not well. That will tell you where that company is going. Because if the HR interview process is terrible and awful, that would be one of the reasons for me to say maybe that's not the right company. And then once you get past that stage and you like how they're doing it, and that includes a simple check, like if every interaction I've had was with the system and the company prides itself unbelievably on the personal relationships, then I would question why on earth someone trying to join a team hasn't had more human contact. And then as you get into the process, ask really about what is the roadmap, what is people's current capability, and how will that capability change in the next 6 months? If people give you a blank stare and you're looking for a forward-looking company, you're probably in the wrong place. If people say to you, this is where we are, these are the basics that we're working with, these are the tools that people currently have access to, but we're looking at rolling out A, B, and C, and we're looking at restructuring the department in this or that fashion to serve the other functions better. That would be the kind of answer that makes you think, well, they clearly know what they're doing and they're experimenting and they're asking the right questions. Hopefully that's useful. I'd love to be able to say, here are the 5 pointers that if they're committed, you'll find a wonderful workplace. Unfortunately, we know that it's the people who make it in the end. But yeah, there's nothing better than being able to answer to ask the hard questions. If people can answer them, they've thought this through.
Yeah, that is true. It is going to be right now a gut feel, asking good questions and seeing how they answer. Do they have a open mindset? Because I can tell you now, some of my clients would be like, oh, I added Copilot to my inbox, and that's it. So you ask some good questions. All right. So the text question. Okay. Yeah. How to rapidly diagnose a situation and accurately identify capability, performance gaps, and future potential.
Wow. How long have we got?
I know. 5 minutes, Marcus. Go for it.
I would almost say you're approaching it from the wrong end. You're trying to find the golden nugget by being clever. And don't take this personally. I just think strategically the thinking here needs to be turned on its head a little bit. You need to start with your first ideas, some low-hanging fruit, and the first questions that come up that you think need answering along the route to find a good solution for those first few ideas. As you go through those, your and your team's experience drastically rises, and your second round of ideas will be 10x better than your first round of ideas, but you can't skip. Even if you bring an expert in and they take you to the third level, people will be so clunky trying to realize those third level technical pieces because they haven't got the experience from all the things that they did wrong in 1 and 2, that they won't be able to execute at that level. And so your use case is then automatically one too high for your people. And so no, you're gonna have to start, just like in the gym, you're gonna have to start with the first exercise that's a little bit harder than you're used to. And you can't jump to Olympic level, no matter how good your dedication is, because your capability and your team's capability need to do some catching up. It doesn't take very long, but you need to start with the low hanging fruit, and with those you will also realize what people around you not only are capable of, but when you look at different functions and different leaders and different tables where the conversation is being had, you also realize where there are blockers, where there are opportunities, where the company is willing to move a little bit faster, and in which areas they're not. And that depends on which sector you're in, what your products and services are, and who your clients are. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I would love to be able to say, here's your killer use case, and these are the 5 things you need to do to find it. Start from the other end. Find the first good, simple thing, work it through, and do that 3x over. And in 3-4 weeks with your team, you're in a completely different world, and you'll look back and think, God, how silly were we 3 weeks ago? And that's the feeling you have in a startup every 2 to 3 weeks. You look back and you go, oh my God, I can't believe we did that 3 weeks ago. We've moved on so far. That's what you'll get. And that's the capability piece you need to grow with internally. And external people can help you with that. And also you can gain insights and support from vendors. But be careful. The oversell is out there and it's big. So take that one with a pinch of salt. And network with your peers. If you have peers working in similar companies that you trust, where you can have a conversation about what are you trying with your team and what am I trying with my team. Let's exchange some notes. There's a lot to be learned from that.
Mm-hmm. There's one more question here. I know we're coming up to time, but it's
let's give it a short one then.
Great question. So here it is. So the current AI are overhyped. It makes sense that many smaller tasks are what the department is needing. I accept. Okay, so not even the whole question is showing because it's such a in-depth question. So let me read here. I do think that L&D is best positioned to lead this work well, but isn't the question really whether the company is committed to improvement or to magical thinking about agents? If the company wasn't trying to optimize operations before AI, are they likely to be interested in optimizing them now?
Well, that's the ecosystem everyone has to answer for themselves. Are the people around you in it for this journey or not? And that's the leadership team. That's your functions leadership. Well, that might be you. Then you're looking at the leaders and other functions. That's what you're going to have to find out. I mean, we can give you the best advice possible. If you don't have the equipment to train, you're on the back foot. If you're surrounded by people that give you the right equipment to train and give you access to it, then you can start your training program. It's the same as with if I want to go to the gym, is there a gym? This is why a lot of organizations are losing top talent, because what I'm seeing much more isn't than the fear of losing the job, is the fear of being in a place where in 2 years I'm so behind that if I then lost my job, I'd never get back in because I can't talk about anything interesting because I've been in a place that's been backward. And so I see a lot of people worried that their organization isn't moving enough, isn't innovative enough, and they're starting to look elsewhere. Yeah. So, of course, everything depends on the ecosystem that you're in. And if you're in a large organization, well, you'll have a very different vibe, whether you're in a Silicon Valley tech company or whether you're in a very conservative law firm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything in between.
Yes, isn't that
and for true? Good reasons often, right?
Yeah.
For very good reasons. There are very different concerns, and
Yeah, and I wouldn't I'm just a bit brutal with this, but I would not let the environment stop me. I was definitely in a place that did not see the value of learning and development, was in so much order taker, the reactive, that's what they expected. And it's like, well, these people are not going to stop me. Like, I'm very kind of selfish when it comes to my own development, and I would encourage you to be the same. Like, you must stay ahead. Don't let the environment stop you. All right, Marcus, any last words before we say goodbye?
Keep asking questions, and the more uncomfortable they are, especially for others and not just you, the better, because the answers will move you a big step forward.
That is so true. All right, I'm going to put the link one more time. Grab that, do the diagnostic. It will take you some time, so set at least 15-20 minutes, and then write down your thoughts as you do it, because those will help you have those conversations. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Candice. Enjoyed that. Hope everyone got something from this, and looking forward to many more conversations. Thank you.
Yes. Bye.